This happened to me and two friends back in the summer of 2021. I was 22 at the time, living in Atlanta, and I just finished my last semester of college. My buddy Marcus had this idea that we needed to unplug from society for a while. His words, not mine. So he planned this backcountry camping trip in northern Georgia, about 3 hours away from where we lived. Not a campground, no trails, no fire rings. Just miles of forest, GPS coordinates, and whatever we carried on our backs. It wasn't my usual kind of thing. I'm more of a weekend hike and back to a cabin kind of guy. But Marcus and Jonah were both really into it. So I went. We left early in the morning and hiked for almost 5 hours. By the time we set up camp, we were easily 10 to 12 miles from the nearest road. Not a single person in sight. And honestly, it felt good. Peaceful. Remote in a way that made you forget about notifications and deadlines. But that night, something happened that I still don't talk about much. It started with a sound. Something none of us expected to hear out there. It was about 1 a.m., and we were all in our tents, half asleep. I was still a little wired from hiking all day, so I had my earbuds in, listening to some old playlist. That's when I felt Jonah tapping on the outside of my tent. He whispered, "Do you hear that?" I took out my earbuds and waited. For a few seconds, nothing. Then I heard it. A baby crying. Faint, but unmistakable. Just a short wail, like a baby crying out once, then silence. Then again, a few seconds later. But we were in the middle of the forest, miles from anyone. No roads, no cabins, no campsites. We all got out of our tents and just stood there, listening. Wow. Silence. Wow. At first, we thought maybe it was an animal. Some kind of bird. Maybe a bobcat or a fox. But it sounded too human. Too precise. Marcus, being the overconfident guy he is, said, "Maybe someone brought a baby out here and got lost. We should check it out." I told him that didn't make sense. What kind of person hikes 10 miles into raw wilderness with a baby? But the crying kept going. Same distance. Same direction. Always just loud enough to hear. Never getting closer. Never fading out. That's when Jonas said something that still gives me chills. He looked dead at me and said, "Why is it only crying once every 10 seconds? He was right. The sound was patterned. Almost mechanical. It wasn't like a baby wailing in distress. It was like the same sound, over and over, perfectly spaced. Wah. Pause. Wah. Pause. Like it was on a loop. We stood there for maybe a full minute, just frozen. Then Marcus, of course, said we should follow it. I didn't want to. I really didn't. But I also didn't want to let him go alone. So we grabbed 2 flashlights and started walking. Jonas stayed behind the fire, smart guy. The crying kept leading us deeper into the trees. We walked for maybe 10 minutes, shining our lights through the brush, moving carefully. The sound was always ahead, just far enough to make you think you were getting closer. But every time we stopped to listen, it had moved again. Same tone, same distance. Never closer, never clear. And then suddenly, it stopped. No fade out, no echo, just gone. We stood there in total silence. I remember my mouth was dry, like I was scared but didn't realize it until the sound was gone. That's when Marcus noticed something on the ground. It was a strip of cloth, dirty, worn, like it had been outside for a while. About the size of a baby blanket, but stiff and crusted over. He picked it up and instantly dropped it. Smells like piss. I flashed my light around the trees. That's when I noticed something else, a plastic baby rattle, half buried in the dirt, right under a mossy root. Except it wasn't weathered. It was clean and new, like someone had placed it there. Marcus suddenly went really quiet. Then he whispered, "What is that?" I turned my light to where he was looking and saw a small wooden crate, maybe the size of a milk crate, just sitting there in the middle of the woods. Not buried, not covered, just there, like someone had set it out like a prop. We didn't open it. I didn't want to touch it. Something about the whole scene, the fake-sounding cries, the blanket, the toy, the crate, it all felt wrong. Too arranged. Like bait. We both backed away without saying a word. Then we heard a branch snap behind us. Not an animal, heavy. Like a boot. We turn around, shining both flashlights. Nothing. But the forest suddenly felt alive in a way it hadn't before. Not with sound, but with presence. Like we were no longer alone. We booked it. No shame. Ran full speed back to camp. Took us 5 minutes to get there. Jonah was still at the fire, pale as a sheet. Before we could say anything, he said, "The crying stopped like 3 minutes ago. But something was moving around your tents. I thought it was you guys, but it wasn't." We didn't sleep that night. We packed up at dawn and hiked back the whole way without stopping. Never saw anyone. Never heard another sound. But 3 days later, Marcus got a call from an unknown number. No one spoke on the other end. But he swears he could hear faint static. And then something else. Just before it hung up. A single baby cry. We never figured out what that sound was. No missing persons reports. No ranger alerts. No signs of anyone in the area. But something was there. And whatever it was, it wanted us to follow. Was it just an animal, or did someone set a trap in those woods? This happened to me in 2019, when I was living in Oregon. I was 24 at the time, working part-time and saving up for grad school. That summer, me and a few friends decided to go camping for the weekend. Nothing unusual, just a quick trip to get out of the city and breathe for a couple days. You know that kind of trip? You bring a Bluetooth speaker, too much trail mix, one person forgets the bug spray, and you all end up regretting not checking the weather first. That kind of thing. We picked a campground a few hours from where we lived, near Crater Lake. It wasn't some hidden wilderness spot. It was listed online, had its own parking lot, bathrooms, even fire pits. The reviews were all solid. It was known to be pretty popular, which we liked, because honestly none of us were super into the idea of being totally isolated in the middle of nowhere. There were 4 of us, me, my girlfriend Alyssa, and our 2 close friends, Chris and Dana. We were all in our early 20s. We'd been on camping trips together before, and it had always been a good time. We left around 10 a.m. on a Friday. The weather was warm, not too hot, and everything felt pretty normal. But looking back now, there were signs that something was off before we even arrived. The first weird thing was how quiet the drive got. We turned off the main road onto a long dirt path surrounded by forest, which is normal, sure. But usually, when you drive to a campground, you at least pass a few cars coming out. Or you see signs of life, tents through the trees, people walking with backpacks, maybe a ranger truck. But this time nothing. The road went on for miles, and we didn't pass a single car. No hikers, no campers, nothing. Just trees on both sides and the sound of gravel under the tires. And then we pulled into the campground. It was empty. Completely. No cars in the lot. No tents. No bikes leaned against trees. No smoke rising from campfires. Nothing. At first we figured maybe we just got lucky. Maybe it was going to fill up later, or people had canceled for some reason. But even that didn't explain how spotless everything was. No litter, no used fire pits, no footprints in the dirt. It was like no one had been there for days. Still, we set up our tents, thinking it was probably just a slow weekend. The weather was good, the drive wasn't bad, and there weren't any warning signs or closures posted anywhere. But something about the place just didn't feel right. We made a small fire before sunset, cooked some food, and tried to relax. But the entire time, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. I know that sounds dramatic, but the forest felt too quiet. Even the usual forest sounds, birds, bugs, wind, were completely absent. You'd stir the fire, and the crackle would be the loudest thing for miles. Chris noticed it too. Around 9 p.m., he said something like, "You guys feel like this place is weirdly dead?" We all laughed it off, but no one really answered. Then Dana asked, When you think the other campers are showing up. And that's when it really hit me. Maybe no one else was showing up. We went to bed around 11 p.m. The fire had burned down, the stars were out, and it was one of those pitch-black nights where you couldn't even see your hand unless you had a flashlight. I woke up sometime after 2 a.m. Not sure what exactly woke me, but something just felt wrong. At first I thought it was an animal. I could hear twigs snapping near our tent. But it didn't sound like something rustling through bushes. It sounded intentional, like footsteps, slow, one at a time, pausing between each step. I grabbed the flashlight and quietly unzipped the tent. There was nothing there, just the trees and silence. But then I noticed something weird. One of our camp chairs, the fold-up ones with a drink holder in the arm, had been moved. It was turned away from the fire pit, facing out toward the woods. I was sure we hadn't left it like that. I even asked Alyssa in the morning. She hadn't touched it. Neither had anyone else. The next morning, we all seemed on edge. Chris hadn't slept well either. He claimed he heard someone breathing outside his tent. Not talking, not whispering, just a slow, steady breathing. But when he opened the flap and looked out, there was nothing. That same day, we noticed something else. A piece of firewood had been added to our pile. It was clearly different, darker, almost damp, and shaped like it had been stripped with a knife. None of us brought it. It wasn't there the night before. And then Dana pointed to the dirt near the trailhead. Footprints. Not ours. Larger. And barefoot. Not completely bare, actually. They looked like someone had been walking in very old, very thin shoes. Maybe moccasins or something. The tread was almost non-existent. Just a vague sole outline. They circled our camp. Twice. And then stopped. Just stopped at the edge of the woods, where the trees got thicker. That's when we all decided we'd had enough. We didn't even eat breakfast. We packed everything in 20 minutes and threw it in the trunk. But before we left, I walked back one last time to double-check the site, mostly to make sure we hadn't left any trash behind. That's when I saw it. A paper napkin. Folded. Sitting on the log by the fire pit. I opened it half thinking it would be trash, but it was blank. Completely blank. And underneath it, this is the part that still messes with me, there was a single, clean toothpick. Just resting there, pointing directly toward our tents. We hadn't brought toothpicks. I didn't say anything to the others. I just got in the car and we left. We checked online that night. No reports, no alerts, no closures at that campground. Nothing. It was still listed. Still open. No known incidents. But something happened there. Something we weren't supposed to see. I still think about those footprints. How they circled us twice, then just stood there, watching. And the weirdest thing, I've looked up that site on Google Maps since then, just out of curiosity. But it's gone. No listing. No reviews. Just a blank green patch in the forest. Like it was never there at all. Was I just paranoid, or was someone really following us that night?